consider maybe 3 minutes, but if you want the full 5 minutes, you're entitled to that. And we'll just see how the day goes. I know, as Councilman Cleveland said, we do have a council meeting at 7 p.m. It should be stated that this date and time was kind of picked because we felt that more people could come after work hours than during the normal working day when hearings are usually held. So that's why we're holding it today. So if we could have Sally Hanley. Oh, yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, Sally Hanley, just in a minute. And then what we'll do is I'm literally going over the lists right now, and we're going to ask for all of them. I get the first page. But we'll be judicious in terms of trying to flesh out residents of the city, organizations, and non-residents. And we're going to try to accommodate everybody, as many people as we can this evening. So without further ado, Sally, please.
Hi, my name is Sally Hanley, and I'm a representative of the Ohio Move to Amend Network. And I'm going to give a brief introduction and then talk about the progress of the Move to Amend up to this date. As far back as the 19th century in the United States, big corporations have been using their money and power to overcome various constraints placed on them by law. Back in the 19th century, the railroad corporations became really large and started chafing under the restrictions put on them. They had a charter from the state, and they used to have to follow a lot of regulations and things like that. However, over time, the courts granted them various protections that used to just belong to real people. Over time, the courts granted them personhood status and the protections of the First, Fourth, Fifth, and 14th Amendments, as well as the Commerce Clause. The founders of our country, of course, meant these only for real people. In 2010, the infamous Citizens United case held that corporations have First Amendment rights to free speech and to spend unlimited amounts of money to support it or oppose candidates for elected office. More than ever, our elections are awash in money. Those with the most money have the most speech. And now everyone who wants to run for office has to spend most of their time just raising money instead of doing what we elected them to do. The Move to Amend arose as a grassroots movement to combat this usurpation of our democracy. There's a groundswell of people of all political persuasions that have joined the Move to Amend to organize campaigns to get resolutions and ordinances passed at their local level, like Cleveland Heights did in 2013 and Cleveland did in 2016, telling their federal and state leaders that they want an amendment to the U.S. Constitution. I'm going to give a status of what's happening across the country. Over 500, mostly municipalities, and 5 states have already passed resolutions or ordinances saying that they want a constitutional amendment. In Ohio, there are 23 that have done this, including, of course, Cleveland. Others in our area are Brecksville, Mentor, Newburgh Heights, Kent, Lakewood, Oberlin, Chagrin Falls, and most recently, in 2016, in addition to Cleveland, are Shaker Heights, South Euclid, and Oakwood. And I understand that University Heights is gearing up for a campaign. This is really important because obviously it really increases our power when we are asking for this amendment. If there's not just an isolated community, but a number of communities that can band together. At the state level, besides just the municipal level, there was a news conference held by 2 Ohio representatives, Nikki Antonio and Kent Smith, announcing that they're sponsoring a bill at the Ohio level. And from the Ohio Senate, Mike Skindell announced that he introduced one in the Ohio Senate. Since that time, 11 more co-sponsors have gotten on board. So things are also happening at the state level. And I'm really happy to say that at the federal level, the We the People Amendment, which is House Joint Resolution 48, was first introduced in the 114th Congress and has been introduced in this one, the 115th, as well, where it now has 38 co-sponsors, including our own Representative Marcia Fudge. So you can see that this movement is growing. Now more than ever, we need to get active. We've taken many steps back since this last election. The swamp, which was supposed to be cleared, has never been swampier. One of the things that I want to mention is that not only governments can pass resolutions and let their representatives know what they want, but many church groups, political groups, peace groups, all kinds of groups are letting their representatives know that they want to get an amendment to the Constitution. So please get active with whatever group you're in and keep up the good fight. Thank you.
Steve Halecko. Steve Halecko, please. And then can we have Robin Brown sit here as well? Steve, you're next, please.
This one, Brian?
Yes, that's fine. And Robin, come on up. You can sit next to him. You'll be after him. Please, Steve, go ahead.
My name's Steve Halecko. I'm the political director of the Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus, and I'm here today testifying on behalf of our just under 700 members who are Cleveland residents. The influence of money in politics, as Sally said, has been with us throughout our history. And the cloud that comes with the influence of money in politics has also been with us. This cloud has gotten darker and darker since Citizens United was passed a few years ago. But the move to amend movements across the country, including the one in Cleveland, is a nice sign that maybe the clouds are beginning to break. But yet the cloud is still with us. This cloud exists for all political candidates who are running for office, whether it be in a very small suburban community, a municipality like Cleveland, at the state level, and at the national level. And this cloud gets darker and darker the higher up you go. Folks who are running for office this year, including the members of City Council seeking re-election, I feel sorry for you for what you're having to deal with. I've run for office myself. You have to calculate what your constituents want, what your constituents need, and a message that you have to craft to get them to vote for you. But you also have to calculate resources. Resources usually translates into money. Even if you have a lot of people working for you, that term means money. And you have to balance the two. You have to balance, say you're running for city council and somebody comes to you and they want a zoning favor. And maybe that zoning favor comes with a campaign contribution. Or maybe a large developer comes to you for a bigger favor, and that favor comes with the campaign contribution. Does that balance with the needs of your constituents? The Q renovation vote a couple weeks ago came with a very, very dark cloud. The cloud was in the form of Dan Gilbert's billions and the amount of money he contributes to political campaigns. The cloud was in the form of the Greater Cleveland Partners and their influence on the building committee. And the cloud was in a darker form that no one could even see or even see through. I wish all 17 members of council were here today, but maybe I can ask the two that are. And maybe the 17 or the 15 others could answer this question. Could you please lift that cloud and unequivocally say that the influence of money in politics had nothing to do with my vote on the Q renovations, or at least explain why you can't make that statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Robin Brown, please. And then can we have David Patterson come up, please, and then sit next to Robin? Robin, please.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, everyone. My name is Robin Brown, and I have been a resident here in Cleveland for 52 years, which is all of my life. But I have lived in the southeast side of Cleveland for over 35 years, and I call that particular neighborhood because it's mine. I'm proud of it. I love it. I'm an advocate. As such as all of you all here advocate for the communities you live in. You want to see it better. You want to see it good. Well, one issue I'm bringing back to the table that has seemed to disappear, but it never went away, and that's housing foreclosures. I'm in the middle of a housing foreclosure, and I'm not going to make this personal because I'm not by myself. It's many people that are going through fraudulent housing foreclosures. The right party of interest are not showing the proper documentation. They are not having representatives there. And for a person of my nature, I'm totally disabled. And I had a hardship of a divorce taking $45,000 out my household. And I was requesting assistance from the banks, from what the federal government ruled that the banks were supposed to do, help the residents remain in their homes because of the crisis that you brought. Not the victims, which I consider myself a victim, and the other residents too. But where the problem is our homes are being taken away from us, which then take the taxes out of our community. As you see, we have been losing taxes since our foreclosure crisis. Look at our neighborhoods. Look at our communities. Where are we going? Where are we headed? What are they going to be like? Because right now, until council, judges, people of power to be, the mayor, the city, take a hold to the interest of this entity in place of moratorium on foreclosures from this day forth, also not using the Patterson case as the structure and overturning and stripping from the Ohio law the city mortgage versus Patterson due to its discriminatory nature and violation of the federal preemption doctrine. It also violates other federal and state statutes, the federal consent decree, and the U.S. Supreme Court decision in the case of Carpenter and Logan. We have a problem here. I can lose my home. I have already paid for triple time. I have paid over $254,000 for a home that I still have 15 years to pay for. And yet, they could take it from me and sell it for $15,000 because the housing sales in the southeast side of Cleveland and throughout Cleveland could only be sold for a fourth of the cost. People have had their homes bought for $1, and then their family is stripped out. That's causing homelessness. It's causing a lot of the vacant properties that are now drug trafficking houses, as well as homes for bodies who have either overdosed or been placed there. I have kids walking around these abandoned homes telling me how many bodies they can see before they get to their house. These vacant properties, which should be housing the families that were placed out of there because no one's following how these courts are upholding the federal law. The ODJ has a report stating what they found the banks doing to the constituents, such as myself and others. Can I get help? No. I contact legal aid. They only have 6 to 8 attorneys to help with foreclosure. It's been said that we don't have a foreclosure crisis in Cuyahoga County, in Cleveland. We know that's not true. We know that we were the highest. So right now, asking for the moratorium on all foreclosures and the overturning of the Patterson City Bank decision is a must, as well as a stay on mines so they won't be putting me out my house.
Thank you very much, Robin. Next, we'll have David Patterson. And Robin, I appreciate the testimony in the foreclosure crisis is very real relative to the impact of the city. And this is not directed directly at you about it, but in general, let's try to stick with the specific issues of money and corporate interest. And that was very related, I know.
Dave will follow up.
Right. And yes, and David will. And the purpose of the meeting's on the board, so I don't need to repeat that. And again, we appreciate the comments because that's been a big problem in corporate banks, and CEOs have gotten away with it all. So I appreciate that. David, please.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate this forum. I think this is very much needed, and there are many dynamics to this. This is what I consider a multi-headed hydra. But from my perspective, there's no event in recent history that really epitomizes the money is speech argument more than the mortgage meltdown of 2008. And not just because of my family's battle, an ongoing battle with fraud and fraudulent foreclosure, which should have been overturned by the Deutsche Bank National Trust versus Holden decision in July of 2016 by the Ohio Supreme Court, but because foreclosure is unquestionably a national travesty. This is what we're dealing with in this country. I would just like to read this coda that I prepared so that I could encapsulate what I need to say here so that we could just move forward.
David, pull the mic right up to yourself because we're recording this.
Okay, thank you. And the coda reads as such. The facts reveal that the Ohio 8th District Court of Appeals was duplicitous on numerous levels with respect to its foreclosure decision in the matter of City Mortgage versus Patterson, which established toxic case precedent, case number 98360 of the Ohio 8th District Appellate Court, December 13th of 2012. First, it cited the case of Federal Home Loan versus Schwartzwald as its justification for Patterson, ruling that because Federal Home Loan owned neither the Schwartzwald's note or mortgage, the High Court must have been inferring that had FHL owned either, they would have had standing to foreclose. The 8th stated, based on our interpretation of Schwartzwald, the fact that City Mortgage was not assigned the mortgage until September 29th of 2006 and did not record the assignment with the Cuyahoga County Recorder until October 13th, 2006, does not preclude a finding of standing. See Patterson at paragraph 22. They used this flawed logic to deceptively extend the limitations of their holdings in Wells Fargo versus Jordan, allowing Citi to prevail in Patterson without the ownership of the mortgage at filing. Citi's claim to own the note was also based on fraudulent documentation, and that's according to the court transcript CV06 601901. It should also be noted that City Mortgage filed this action on September 20th, 2006, and both the trial and appellate court concurred that City Mortgage did not own the mortgage at filing. This was a violation of the precedent in Jordan, which was case precedent until the 8th misapplication of Schwartzwald created the Patterson verdict. Conversely, in another case heard by the 8th District and journalized the same day as Patterson, the 8th concluded that David is correct, that the party filing a foreclosure action must own the mortgage. David versus Sensenbrenner, 98636, Ohio 8th District. Secondly, the same case law, Schwartzwald, utilized by the 8th to remove the mandate to own the mortgage at filing in Patterson, was shockingly used by the 8th to stress the obligation to own the mortgage at filing in Davitt. Attorney John Wood conveyed to Attorney Grace Dober